Good, good evening, class.
Good evening.
Starting a few.
Caesar?
Yes.
So last class I was not able to follow because I was having problems with my computer. So can I follow on the videos? I couldn't find the videos. Are they gonna be available?
Yeah, my apologies. I wasn't able to. I don't think I'm able to broadcast them anymore because I need that ability on Autodesk has been disabled, and enabling means I need to get like managers approval, and I don't think I want to go through that trouble. But the recordings are still in the cloud. What I can do now is share the cloud recording. If you want to like look at it right now, I need to download it. Give me a second.
What's up, Cesar?
Hi, how's it going?
Está bien, ¿y tú?
I am good. Yes. Happy Thursday. It's a Revit time.
Yay. Okay.
How's been your week?
Not fun.
Busy?
Nah, it's been a little sick.
Oh, sorry to hear.
Yeah. So I'm extremely tired. If I fall asleep, don't take it personal.
Okay, I'll try to make it amicable.
Just put your cat picture on, Scott.
Wait a minute, you're
No,
here? I
no,
thought you weren't gonna
I'm
be
here for 45 minutes. My
Oh,
meeting's
okay.
at say around 6:30, so I can either participate now or have to do it later.
Hey,
So
you got one of these?
I did a bigger one of that. Is that the Lego one?
That's
Yeah.
the Lego one.
Where's this middle leg?
It's tucked down. I
Got
didn't
it
pop
tucked
it
in?
open.
All right. Yep, it's prominently displayed.
And then a little one.
Of course.
I like it. I think every day you should introduce to us one of the gadgets you have in the back.
They're almost all Legos.
Oh, they're Legos.
Oh
Wow,
yeah, lots of Legos.
that's awesome.
Here, this is the one I just finished.
Wow,
Yeah.
Wow.
you have a nice collection there.
Yeah, I gotta do something to occupy my time. Uh-oh, I hear little tiny dogs.
All right, let's see who's here. I'm going to share. I'm sharing my screen, right? You guys see the syllabus?
Yes.
Okay.
That's not Revit.
I see Andrea, Dan,
Mhm.
Jasek, hi. Savita, hello.
Hello.
Eric and Ivana, welcome. Joel, Lisette, Michelle, and Scott.
Hello.
Eva. And Dan, I thought you were not going to be here.
Yeah, I have my meeting actually starts at 6:30, so I got to
Okay.
out of here about 6:15.
I hear you.
I don't want to be late for the pizza and beer.
No, no one wants
There's
that.
actually a real meeting, that's going on with the pizza and beer, but
Okay, so in the chat panel, Andrea, I'm going to paste the link to the recording of last class.
Okay.
It needs an access passcode. And this is if you want to like watch in the next few days, because I'm still need to download it and upload it.
Mhm.
But that'll give you access to the recording right now.
Okay.
Okay. Let's review what's going on for today. We are on class number 6. We are in the process of creating or looking at modeling tools. Last class, we created walls and custom walls and floors. We actually already know how to load components and place components. We were in the middle of creating windows, and we're going to finish that today. I'm going to go ahead and talk about finishes and materials, and curtain walls, I'm going to move it for next class. 2 more classes, maybe I have another one to wrap this exercise. Right, this is where we were with last class. We created one window and we placed it at the center of the room. But before we move to the exercise, it's test time. Nothing difficult, nothing to worry about. If you want to participate, go into the website slido.com, and the access code is 883540. Or you can direct your cell phone, your smartphone camera to the QR code and open the website directly from there. I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. Slido may ask you for your name, an email in order to participate. It's 5 questions, so nothing really difficult. Slido, I don't know what's the right way to pronounce it. Also, I have a web app, an app. You can download it from Google Play or from the iPhone. Okay, you guys ready? Let's do this. I'm gonna launch the first one. Okay, in the wall properties, what is the purpose of the number in brackets? This is the type property. We access the structural layers, and we define the function, the material, and the thickness. There are these are arranged from exterior to the interior. And so the number of brackets, what does it mean? I see nine answers, 10 answers. All right, let's show the results. Correct. It's the number in brackets is it's called the priority number, and it indicates it's Revit way to make an educated guess on how the internal materials connect in wall intersections. Good job. Also remember that the priority number that's associated with the function has to grow incrementally from the core to the finishes, the interior and exterior finishes. And if we don't respect that rule, Revit is going to generate an error. Okay, next question. There is an image on the screen. What is the name of this family? Oh. So what is the name of the family? So remember, the 3 pieces of information reported by the tooltip are and so the family is uh, 11 responses. I got most everybody got it correct. The name of the family is the curtain wall. Okay, next question. Oops, but this one. Or is it this one? Yeah. These are the selection controls. Which of these disable the user ability to select element by face? And we look at this in the first class. These are the controls in the lower right side. And they impact the way we select elements on the screen. See 9 responses. Okay, let's last call, display the results. Yes, it's number 4 in that. And if I go back, let's see. The icon number 1, enable or disable the user ability to select links. So if we have a discipline linked into our project, if this is enable, and when I say enable, that means there's no X. X means it's disable. Number 2, enable the user ability to select underlay objects, meaning if I have elements on the first floor that are represented in the second floor, I have the ability to select them and modify them. We almost never enable number 2 because this can be confusing. But if we are like coordinating floor 1, floor 2, this might be a good option to have enable. Number 3, enable or disable the user ability to select pin objects. So if I enable it, pin objects cannot be selected at all. And then the last one, number 4, enable the user ability to select elements by face. So just by touching the face of an object, you can select it. Otherwise, you will have to go to the edge or to the boundary of the element in order to select it. And then this other one is just the drag and move. Enable or disable the drag and move. I usually like to disable it because it's very easy to inadvertently click on the screen and move stuff. Things that will be impacted very easily. Like if you have select by face and at the same time you have move and drag enable, it's very easy to move floors. You know, you don't even notice. You never know that you move a floor because you will click on a white. You're thinking you're clicking in a white space, and at the same time you're dragging it, and then the floor is shifted, and you don't understand how that happened or why it happened. And then the filter discloses the number of elements in a selection. All right. Let's look at the next one. Hide the results. What is the purpose of this control? When we're working with walls, you have all these different symbols that appear. So I see 8 responses, 9. I'll tell you what the other ones were. This is the start grip, the end grip, and it's aligned with the location line. So this wall is it's a location line. So the one pointing the double arrow, see 11 responses. Let's show the results. Perfect, 100% correct. It flips the direction of a wall. Okay, and the last one. When we're creating elements in sketch mode, there are some rules we follow. Which of the following is not a rule? And sketch mode, remember, it's a temporary display that allows us to create system families. So we use it to create ceilings, floors, roofs, topo surfaces. We use it to edit the boundaries of a wall in elevation. See 11 responses. Show the results. The correct answer is boundary lines must be straight segments. This is not a requirement. The other two are a requirement. Boundary lines must be in a closed loop. That needs to be correct. That's correct. And boundary lines cannot overlap. So, and then you can have straight segments, curved segments, elliptical segments. The draw tool allows you to create all different types of lines. Okay, that's it. Easy, easy peasy. Any question about the test? All right, so if you weren't able to follow up in the last class and you want to pick it up from where I left it, you can download Mila Hiat Start 4. I'm going to get a link and paste it in the chat panel. Feel free to download it and open it. If you were with me last class, just pick it up from where we left it. What we're going to do now is to try to place the rest of the windows. And if you recall, I teach you the proper way of creating new types based on existing ones. And the process requires us to select an object, duplicate the type, rename it, and then change parameter values. In this case, we created a new window that was 5'6" by 5'6", and we placed it in the right sill elevation center in the space. I'm gonna open the floor plan because that's where I have the scanned elements. And we're gonna try to place the rest of the window. So I will complete the south elevation, then I go to the east, and then I go to the west and then the north. Oh. South, east, north, and west. So this is going to be this door integrated with the window. I'm going to make it a storefront. So I'm going to talk about it later. So I'm not going to build it right now. But we have, I think, the same size of a window in the upper right side of the building on the south side. So you can work in 3D or you can work in elevation. So I'm going to do it in elevation just for make it easier. This is the south elevation, and I'm going to select the window. And remember the shortcut to create similar. That's CS. Create similar. I shared with you this shortcut last class. When you select an object and you type CS, it will create exactly the same object in a new location. So you don't have to drag and look for a window. You can just select it and type CS. And then I want to try to place it here, and it doesn't like it. And I think the reason it doesn't like it is because it's attempting to place it in the same working plane as the other one. Okay, well, that didn't work. Let's try doing it via the window. Damn, why is it not working? I guess I'll have to do it in a 3D. In 3D, I'm going to switch to the front elevation, which is the south elevation, and do it again, window, and now it works. Now, I guess with create similar, it attempts to place it in the same working plane. So just to verify, the sill of this window, it's a 9'4", and I'll guess it's going to be like around 1 foot away from the edge of the wall. So on the south elevation, I can change or adjust the sill elevation. So this will be 9'4", and I can say it's 3 feet away from the face of the perpendicular wall. All right, so repeating, you can place a window in 3D and just copy. Okay, that was the south. Let's go into the east elevation. Similarly, there is a 5'6" by 5'6" window, and I believe this is a 24 by 24. I can measure it because these elevations are to scale. It's 2'6", 2'6". So it's 30 by 30 window, and they are roughly at the center of the space of each of the walls. So I'm going to go to the 3D view and go to the east elevation, which is the right side. So on the navigation cube, you can just click on the right elevation, and we're going to have a big window and 2 small ones. Same thing, go to window. This is a 6 by 6. And then I don't think there's a 30 by 30. So we're going to have to create a new type based on an existing one. So I'm just going to place a 24 by 24 in the meantime. Here and here. The sill height of these guys, it's 2'6". So you can change them all in a single command. You can Control select the windows, and the sill height is an instance property that can be applied to multiple windows at the same time. So 2'6". There you go. And now to create a new type based on an existing one, I select the window, edit the type properties, and change, duplicate, rename, and change parameter values. So I'm going to create a 30" by 30" window. Select the placeholder, and then we're going to edit the type. Duplicate the 3 rules of creating new types: duplicate, rename, and change parameter values. This is a 30" by 30. And the width and the height will be changed accordingly. So 2'6" and 2'6" on the width and the height. You see, this default sill height is when I drag and drop the window, it automatically places it at this height in the 3D environment. Okay, apply it. And now I have my my small window, 30 by 30. And if I want the other window to be the same size, I can flip it using the type selector. And the sill height will be respected. That is how the window grows from the sill upwards. Now, to center the windows, it's best to do it in a floor plan. I think when you select it here, you can see there are these temporary dimensions. But to be really precise, it's best to do it in a floor plan. I'm going to go to level 1. Here are the windows I placed. And so we're going to do exactly the same procedure as we did for the opposite side. Select the window, and then the temporary dimensions can be converted into permanent dimensions if we click this symbol. That symbol means convert, that's temporary strings of dimensions, into something that's going to get printed. So again, you select the window, convert the temporary dimensions into permanent, and then escape. And then when you select the temporary dimensions, you see the EQ icon that's going to place the window right at the center. And we could do the same for the other windows. For the other windows, the small one, I'm just going to follow the footprint here. It looks like it may not be exactly the midpoint, and the same for the other one here. I'm just going to select it, shift it up. And that take care of the windows on that side. So that was the east. We can do the north one, and in the north one we have exactly the same distribution as the south. We can actually do it in floor plan so that you see that you can do it both ways. If you select these the 66 by 66, notice that if I type CS here, create similar, it does work in floor plan. It doesn't seem to work in elevation. If you type CS here, it's going to place that the same one right here. And notice that in plan, Revit likes to center stuff. Like you immediately feel like there's, when you place the window, like it's sort of snapped to a certain location, and that's the midpoint of the space. And then just double check the sill height needs to be 2'6". That's an instance property, and the wall. Oops, I'm sorry. Okay. And then there is another window in this location. So the same thing. If you want to do it in plan view, CS, create similar, and then place it here. Now the sill height in this location, I think we say it was going to be 3 feet away from the 3 feet, not 30, 3 feet. And you may need actually a little bit more of 3 feet so that it doesn't create this odd condition. Maybe I'll do it 3'2". And then the sill height for this corner window, it's 9'4". So when a window fall outside of the cut plane, it no longer display in a floor plan. And that's why you don't see in a floor plan the clerestory windows. Let's check it in 3D. There they are. And as you can see, there are different ways of placing this. You can do it in 3D, you can do it in floor plan, you can do it in a projected elevation. You choose what is the best space for you. Sometimes it's a combination of both. Like you place it in 3D and adjust the precise location in plan. And then the last one is the north or the, well, do I have them all? I think I have them all, yeah. No, the west side, I think. I'm missing the west side. And if I look at the west elevation here, it only has one little window in the lower right corner of the middle space. I can do that. I think that is also, this seems to be the same size as the other one. So it's a 30 by 30. So I'm gonna do this in a projection elevation. So go to the west elevation and then place a window 30 by 30. And then snap it to the right corner of this room and adjust the sill heights. Was 2'6". And let's do this 3'2". Let's do this 2'6". Because I'm all in. Place it at 2 feet away. Okay, so that is all. Those are all the windows in this space. I'll give you, if you need more time, I'll give you 1 more minute to wrap it up. Again, use the scan images as a reference for placement and sill heights. And choose either working in 3D, in a 3D elevation, or into a projection elevation. I'm gonna save this. Let's save this as 5. Okay, so everybody with me here? All right, let's talk about start looking at some of the graphic controls in Revit and controlling visibility of objects and line work in Revit. It's not difficult, but it's a multi-layer process. I think I talked a little bit about that in the past, but let's do it in greater detail. So in the floor plan of this project, I'm going to switch to the graphic display to hidden line. And I'm also going to switch the display to coarse. And then in the visibility graphics is display of all the elements that are visible in the view. You open visibility graphics using VV. VV opens visibility graphic. And remember this shortcut because we're going to use it all the time. The visibility graphics will disclose the list of all the categories in Revit. Categories in Revit are grouped by model categories, meaning physical representation of objects. Annotation categories, which are view-specific categories. These are tabs and detail lines. You have analytical model categories, which is only applied to structural conditions. So we don't deal with analytical model categories that much. You can enable or disable the visibility of imported CAD files, and you can control visibility using filters. But for the most part, we're going to stick in these two tabs: model categories and annotation categories. And there are roughly about 300 categories in total. The ones that are disclosed by visibility graphics are here. And this is a big.
What is the difference between VG and VV?
It's the same thing. Yeah, in Revit, you can have multiple shortcuts for the same command. I think also V1 might work, or maybe not. No, it used to be V1. So VV or VG, it doesn't matter. You can have up to 3 or 4 shortcuts for the same thing. Okay, so remember the concept of category, right? Category, it's a collection of geometrical, it's a collection of parameters associated with a geometry. And so the categories in Revit are given by out of the box. We cannot create categories. We cannot delete them. They're just what they are. And it's a way to classify elements by discrete properties. What we can create are subcategories inside categories. So if you see this plus sign next to the subcategories, next to the categories, there is a set of different subcategories. For example, I click the plus sign next to the door category, and then there are all these different subcategories, which are these are graphic settings associated with components inside the doors. So the elevation swing in projections, the glass, the plan swing, the panel, all those different components of the door are suited to have different line weights. And so when we create families, and we're going to look at how to create families at the end of the class, at the end of the course, the last few classes, I'm going to show you how we can create custom subcategories. and be able to assign different line weights to elements inside that. Let's see another one that's popular. If you go to the walls, for example, click the plus sign. These are subcategories. These are system subcategories, meaning that they come out of the box. This is a new feature in Revit 2022, the ability to display non-core layers. So I'll give you an example. If I switch to fine here, well, I don't have a complex line wall here, but I'm going to create a complex wall type. And so these display both the core and all the different functions. But sometimes in architectural representation, maybe you just want to show the core and nothing else. So one way to control the visibility of those layers, you go to the walls and disable the non-core layers. When you apply it, everything that is not a core will be switched off. I guess the core is this one, and there is a gap here. Yeah, so these two are part of the core. I enabled it again, then that displays the other one. Oh no, my bad. When I display this, and I also display the sweeps, I think this is a sweep where you see here. Otherwise, I will only be looking at this. The sweep is reveal extruded along the length of a wall, and this is a sweep that you see here on the outside. Maybe I'll switch this to something else. Yeah, this example only doesn't have any sweeps, but you see now I only see the core, and if I want to display the non-core, then I can enable it here. So when we use this, sometimes structural engineers in their structural plan don't care a lot about displaying finishes in their structural plans. So one way to control the visibility of the core is now using this visual control. Anyway, so we were talking about controlling visibility. I'm going to return to the course view. The grayed out that you see is the result of the intersection of a mass. So to disable it, I think I need to go to the massing and site, and where it says, yeah, it says now that the masses are controlled by the view settings. And so if I go to visibility control and go to the masses, I disable the checkbox of the mass category. And now the mass is no longer, and then everything looks dark. Okay. So visibility graphics or visibility VG or VV have ways to override projection lines and cut lines. And so if I'm interested to display the cut pattern of the walls with a different color, I can do that by selecting the wall category, going into the pattern override, and assign a different color. You see. So again, the way I did that is VG, open the walls, select the wall category, open the cut pattern, and select different colors. In the past couple of versions of Revit, you have also the ability to apply a foreground pattern and a background pattern. For example, if for some rule you want a background pattern that it's, I don't know, like diagonal, you can apply that in the project. And you can make a combination of patterns. For example, right now I'm having like this concrete pattern, color red, and a background pattern that's diagonal. And this is what you get is the pattern, two patterns on top of each other. Again, and because this is view specific, visibility graphic only impacts the view controls in a specific view. So if I switch to a different level or a copy of level 1, that is not going to transfer. And so to clear the override, that's not the proper way of representing this. You can just hit the button on the pattern cell and clear overrides. That's going to remove the fill pattern graphic overrides, and then they are going to be controlled by object style. Okay, let's see another thing. Maybe in this floor plan, I don't want to display the pattern of the concrete, or maybe you do, but if you want to switch off the pattern in this floor plan, you can use visibility graphic as well. Visibility graphic. In visibility graphics, when you have the dialog box open, you can just type the first letter of the category, and it's going to jump right at the first category with that letter, starting with that letter. In here, if you don't want to scroll, you can just type F, and it will take you to the first category that starts with F. And that's easier, right? Over time, you're going to memorize all these categories. And then the floors, you want to disable the hatch in plan. So we're going to apply projection pattern overrides. So in the column of patterns, we're going to click the override button, and you see this check boxes that says visible for the foreground and the background. You can disable it. And what that means is that the hatch associated by category in the view will not be visible. So hit OK here. And the pattern is gone for this particular view. And it displays the word hidden. There is also, I also need to talk about object styles. So visibility graphic apply new graphic properties to the elements in the view. Otherwise, they will be represented by category. And where are the default values, the default global values of the line weights? That is available to you under the object styles. So object styles, it's the setting that apply universal line weights per category across all the views. And you access it going into the Manage tab. And next to the materials, you're going to see the object styles view. The dialog box is very similar to the visibility graphics, but it doesn't have a checkbox because this is just global settings. And take a note on this because it's going to be on the test next week. So VV or visibility graphics, this is view specific, and object styles. These are global settings by category. Yeah. So these are the global settings of how everything is represented in projection and in cut line. So let's look at these numbers. Line weights, it's a property associated with projection and cut. And line weights, it's a value that goes from 1 to 16. So in Revit, we have 16 line weights. And the printed value of these line weights, it's also a global setting. To access the line weight definitions in a project, you can go into the, I'm going to exit this dialog box, and then you can go to additional settings under the Manage tab, additional settings, and hit line weights. And the line weight, it's display a numerical value, and the printed line width associated with the number for different scales. So I think when people design Revit, they realize that there are line weights that may not need to scale up and down. For example, line weight number 1 is usually associated with the smallest printed line weight available by your printer. And the line weight number 1, which is the tiny one, remain exactly the same value across all the scales in the project. But if you look at line weight number 5 or 4, which is usually associated with the cut of walls, then the scale changes from scale to scale, and there's a logic behind it. You know, for the different scales, the line weight either increases or decreases if you increase the scale factor. The higher the scale factor, the lower the line weight is. And there's some logic behind it. For example, if you're doing a site plan, then you may want to use a different value of line weight as if you were doing like 1/8 of an inch or a 1/4 of an inch floor plan, where your walls, each of the walls are going to read in a different value. I think the out-of-the-box values of line weights, for the most part, work. You just need to be able, if there are things you want to tweak on your end, you can choose a different line weight. If you want it thicker, just make it 5 or 6. If you want thinner, you go number 1. But for the most part, there's no need to really change this value, but you have the options if you want to. Notice also there are 6 scales here. You can add additional scales to have a custom list of line weights based on that scale. If your scale fall in between, Revit's going to choose the values that is closer to the scale here. For example, if I have an intermediate scale in between half, maybe between 1/2 and 1/4, let's say 3/8, which is not listed here, Revit is going to make it closer to the lowest numbers. So in this case, it will print the same way as 1/2 an inch. For perspective lines and annotation line weights do not scale. They don't change by the view because they are, annotation line weights are view specific. So they really don't have, are not impacted by scale. And then when we are in 3D, the elements also don't change, scale up and down. All right, so object styles is a way to control how an element is represented by category. It assigns a projection and a cut line weight, a color, and a line pattern. And this is another one. Line patterns can be associated by default in the object styles. Okay, any question about object styles or line weights in general? Okay, let's talk about materials. This is a big topic because materials is everything in Revit. Materials provide a virtual representation of the appearance of an object and the physical properties of an object, including the structural and thermal properties. So when we assign a material to an object, we're also making decisions about how it's going to be represented and analyzed. So the materials library in a project is available under the Manage tab, and then you're going to see the materials button in the upper left side of the ribbon. We've assigned materials already, but I want to talk in a greater detail what the materials, how we create new materials from scratch. In a material, it's a virtual representation of the the graphic properties of a material, the appearance, settings, physical and thermal properties. So there's also identity properties that are, it's metadata associated with the material. The identity tab discloses the name of the material and the class. The class is important. If you click the drop down arrow on the class, this is important because it defines what type of appearance and physical and thermal properties an object's going to have. And so it's better to associate materials with the appropriate class. It's also important because this allows the material to preserve the properties if they travel from one platform to another. Right now in Autodesk, you can create a material in AutoCAD and it will travel into Revit. If you create it in Revit, it will travel to AutoCAD, it will travel to Inventor and 3D Max. And a lot has to do in the way the information is packed in the class, in the different classes. You can also associate materials with product information, manufacturer model costs, and a URL. These information can be extracted in the form of schedules that you can use for creating your list of finishes. And you can also embed keynotes and keynote marks descriptions, keynote descriptions. to create material keynotes. This is an option we're going to talk in greater detail later. The graphic properties, the graphic tab, display the projection properties of the projection and the cut properties of a material. So here you have how an object is going to be represented in surface in projection and how it will be cut. And you can have a combination of a foreground and a background pattern associated with a color. So graphic is how take care of the visibility graphic or the graphic property of a material in a documentation set. The appearance, it's how an element is going to get rendered and how you can create photorealistic representation of an object. In the appearance, the type of parameters is dependent on the class of the object. For example, the class of the objects associated with this acoustic tile discloses all these different reflectivity, transparency, cutout, self-illumination parameters. So appearance has to do in how an element will be rendered in the Revit render engine. And you can associate also the fault shading color, meaning if you're in shade mode, there's an RGB color that gets associated with that. That's also available here on graphic. You see when it says the graphic shading has this value, but if you click this checkbox, use render appearance, it's going to import the default RGB color associated with the appearance library. So I like to use the render appearance because there's a validation on the material in a shade mode. And so one of the most important part on these dialog box is this piece of information. And this is called the material asset. An asset is a collection of appearance, physical, and thermal properties. A material asset is a collection of appearance properties. And a material asset is something that we can retrieve from a material asset library. So you're going to see that there is a little hand, there's a little icon with a hand, and it has a little 0. This may be in the test or not, I'll see. Anyway, the number right now is say 0, and the hand is an asset. So what that means is that the asset called acoustic tile, 2x2 pebble white, it's in use by a material, but it hasn't been applied to any category of objects. And so if you see that you see a number there like 1, 2, 3, 4, that means the number of categories that have these material applied. That means it's in use. And what that means, if you make any changes to these parameters, you're making changes to the asset, and they are going to translate to other categories where the material is in use. The same is true for physical and thermal. We don't use this that often, but notice that there are different, there's a different physical asset, and these contain information, physical information about this material. And then there's also thermal properties, which has all these different thermal acoustic properties, including conductivity, specific heat, density, emissivity, permeability, porosity, reflectivity, etc. I used to know what this means back when I was studying for the ARE. I forgot most of it, but if you are an expert in thermal properties, you probably have a better idea than I do. Okay, and so as you can see, a material in the proper library can have up to 3 different assets. You can have an appearance asset, you can have a physical asset, and you can have a thermal asset. And in architectural world, we probably don't care too much about physical and thermal. If you know that, you know, your model may be undergoing analytical studies, maybe you consult with your engineer about what will be the appropriate assets for the physical and thermal properties if you're creating something from scratch. But for the most part, we'll only concern about how a material work or how material it's presented in projection and rendering conditions. All right, so the list of materials you see in this dialog box are all the materials that have been available by the project template. So when we started this project, I used the architectural default template, and that came with this predefined list of materials. This is not an exhaustive list of materials. And this is just like the most frequently used ones, or the most likely, the materials that are more likely to be used in a project. You can customize, by the way, your own template so that users don't have to recreate over and over one material. So there is also yeah, this model was created in an old version, an old template, and the reason I know, notice also that the icons next to each of the materials has this little corner. It's a yellow corner, and it has a little exclamation point. And so this is a warning. It's telling me that the definition of that material, it's rather old. It started in Revit 2021. Revit, not only Revit, all the material libraries across the Autodesk products were replaced by physical definition materials. Well, it has the ability to represent light in a better way. But Revit, Autodesk just couldn't just remove the old version of the materials. So right now they are coexisting, the old materials with the new materials. So the new materials use physically accurate assets, which have been tested to reflect light in the same way you would see it in real life. And so physical based materials is the newest set of materials available in the library. And I'll show you how you can create and bring one. Okay, so procedures to create a new material. If I want to create a material from scratch, and I'm going to create, let's say, a new exterior tile, or a new tile, and that tile is not listed in, that material is not listed in the material library. So the first thing is to choose the appropriate default material. So in the material library, there are some default materials. Some of them are associated with a specific class. So the most generic material you can find is called default. If you want to create a material for a floor, then you can start with the default floor. If you're going to start with a wall, a material for a wall, you can do the full wall, the full roof, etc. But choose the default material to get started. And notice how, for example, the generic asset is used by 8 other materials in the material library. That's what it means. And so the process is we duplicate a material and rename it. So when you duplicate a material, you also, Revit is going to add a number in brackets at the end of the name. So duplicate it, and you see that I created a new material called the fold 1 in brackets. And I rename it the way I need it to be. Usually it needs to be very descriptive. And I'm going to do wood exterior wood slat. Okay, that takes care of the name, but then all the properties are empty. Notice also that there are no physical or thermal properties. And the asset that's using is generic. Notice that it increased now to number 9. That means that 9 materials in the material library are using the generic asset. And then we need to be careful if we change anything on the generic asset, it's going to translate across all that 9 material. Okay, so exterior asset, I finish. When I finish and click OK, I'll need to go back and search it alphabetically. I need to clear the search cell and actually go into the exterior wood slat. Again, what I need to do, clear the search, because the search is filtering the results in the material library. So you clear it by clicking this X. And then go back and find the material I just created. The exterior wood slat. Okay, now instead of on the identity data, let's make sure that we pick the appropriate class. This is going to be a representation of exterior envelope, a material for the exterior envelope, and it's going to be wood. So let's make sure it goes into the wood category. And then you can add description if needed. All this information, this metadata, are things that you can include in material schedules. I'm not going to do that now, but it's something you could keep in mind. All right, the next thing is to define the graphic material, how things are going to be represented in the documentation. And so I want to use the render appearance. So what that means is going to pick the RGB color in the appearance tab. And because these are slats, maybe I'm not going to use a background, but I may use just a foreground pattern. And in here, I'm just going to pick a vertical hatch. And if I need to change colors, I can also do that. And this is the default, this is a global setting for the way in which this material is represented in every view in the project. All right, so these are the graphical surface patterns, cut patterns, shading patterns. I like to use render appearance But this is a user preference. All right, on the appearance library now, you should avoid making changes to the generic asset that is displayed to you, because any change you do here is also going to transfer into other materials. And so what I recommend you doing is to copy the asset. You can duplicate this asset if needed. Actually, there's no need to duplicate the asset. I can replace it from material asset library. And the material library asset is right here. This is important to material library asset. The material library asset, it's a very, very extensive list of appearance, physical, and thermal properties. It's for reference only. For reference only, meaning you cannot create additional assets there. You cannot delete them. And the same library assets, it's common across all the Autodesk products. In fact, the material library, it's accessed from the same folder path to all the materials in Autodesk products. So when you open the material assets libraries, these are all the different libraries. There's a lot of physical material, structural. They are grouped by region because there may be, a structural code requirements that are very specific, in particular for the thermal properties of objects. But the one we want to search here is the appearance library assets. So 100% of our time, we're just going to be worried. We're gonna try to bring appearance library assets. Notice how each of them is locked, which means it's read only. You cannot replace any of these assets. And if you look at the material asset definitions, some of them are physical-based materials and some are not. Every asset that has this little triangle warning means that it's an old definition, and anything that you see without the warning, it's a physical-based material. So if you want impactful, if your goal is to create impactful renderings, I would recommend to review your library and only use physical-based materials, because the results are just astonishing. It's really amazing, the reflection capacity and the perception on the eye of these physically based material. And right now it's just a mix of both definitions. So we are trying to search for some kind of exterior wooden slat. Let's see if I find something slat. So when I type the word slat, Revit filter all the different slat materials. Most of this is like roofing slat, brick slats, stone slats. Let's see what I can find under the wood. So I'm going to clear the search here and go into the wood. And again, I see a lot of the amount of assets available here it's much larger than the one you find in the Revit out of the box. And so like you have all these different plywood, pine, there's some panelings. You can display the thumbnail at a much larger size if you want to see more details. And you do that by clicking this view control. And for example, I want to display it at 60 by 60 and it display more details. You can even go to like 256 if you want to like really look at how it's going to render. You can go to a much bigger side. And so you can start seeing, you know, the difference between the physical based materials and the non-physical based material in a greater degree. So we just pick things we want. Like this rosewood looks nice. You can also sort these out by aspect, by color. Right now it's sorted alphabetically. That's probably too big. I'm going to switch to 64 by 64. I'm just going to pick something here. Something called apple, panel, particle, poplar, redwood, teak. I'm just going to take maybe teak, natural polished. And all you need to do is double click the assets. Alternatively, you can hit this double arrow here. But when you double click the assets, all the properties, the appearance properties of that asset is translating to my new material. That is that the asset is reported at the top and it brings the image, stain color, finish, etc. And it'll replace all the previous groups of parameters. If you recall, the generic one didn't have all these wood pattern, and that's brought into the project as well. 0 means that only this one has this asset. There's no other materials in the project that share this, and that's why it says 0. Okay, and the same is true for the physical and the thermal properties. You can add physical properties if needed. And then it's asking me to add a physical asset. You just click here and say physical, and it's looking for physical assets. Or if you click here and say thermal, it will search for thermal properties. You have to pick the asset, and then it will going to create a new tab for you here. But for the most part, we're not going to use those tabs.
So Cesar, I selected a different wood. I selected walnut, and I have 5 little hands. Is that what you're saying? The number, you know, instead of your 1, I have 5 little hands.
That means that asset is used by 5 other
Mm-hmm.
materials in the project. Yeah.
Okay.
You can go back and change it. In fact, you know, I think I'm going to change it because I don't think I pick a physically based material. So I'm going to go back to the woods, and I'm going to pick one that does not have this warning, so that you see the difference in the rendering. Oh, you know, here is something called siding. Maybe I'll do that. It's an exterior siding, 6-inch beige. And then there's this clapboard, smooth 4 inches. I'm going to use that one. This is a physically based material. double click it, and then the asset is transfer. And this is going to look kind of gray. Let's see if I can look at in a greater detail here. I'm going to make this big sample. Siding. Well, there's this Vivo that looks kind of good. So yeah, siding comes with all these different ones. Tongue and groove, wood. Oh, look at these wood shakes. I changed my mind. I'm going to do this wood or is this vertical, wood vertical white. It's a, no, this is not a physical based material. I'm going to do the wood shakes, and I'm going to transfer it. And that's how it looks like. Okay. This can always be changed later. Any other question about materials? If you're concerned about the size of the tiles, then you should look at the image properties. So when you click on the JPEG, you're going to see how the texture is working. And so on the top, there's a shortcut displaying the size of the tile and like how many shakes are, how many of the wood relief modules are on each side of the tile. But you can change that. Like you can say, okay, I need a bigger size of slats. And so you change the sample size. Right now it's 6'5", and they are linked. The size is locked. That means if you change it in one direction, you change it in another direction. If I change it to 4, for example, 4 feet, 4, 0, or 4 feet 0. Oh, I can change it. 4. Now the tile increased in size, and so the size of the JPEG is going to get bigger. And so you can also disable the link property, and the aspect ratio is going to start getting the form. Repeat means that this JPEG is going to get repeated in tiles in the horizontal and the vertical. But if you change this to none, there's only going to be a single tile in the horizontal, no more tiles. Then everything's going to be just vertical. Okay, I'm going to return this to the original one, which was 6'5". And I guess, oops. And it looks like the way to change the sample size is to type it on top of it. I don't know why. 6'5", 6'5", and done. But if you change it for the image, you should also change it for the roughness. And the roughness is what make the appearance have this 3D effect, and it's associated with the relief pattern. And so a material can have a combination of multiple patterns to address a specific type of material effect. Okay, so I'm just going to say okay here, and that material is now part of my project. Let me also create another material, and then we're going to apply it to the project, and then I'm gonna give you a heads up on how we start rendering and seeing. All right, so let's do another material very quickly, and let's say now that I'm going to create a glass that it's tinted. It has this tan tint, and so we start. I'm going to go a little faster because we know the process already. We start by a placeholder, right click and duplicate it, and I'm going to call this glass tinted. Then I can go to the identity and make sure that the identity is associated with the appropriate class. Yes, that's the class. And I'm going to go to the graphics and connect the shading with the render appearance. Then I'm going to go into the appearance library, and notice how the clear asset has number 2 means that there are 2 other materials that are used in that asset. So I don't want to make changes to this. I'm going to open the material asset browser, go to the appearance library, go to the glass class, and you can pick a tinted glass here. The ones with the better rendering effects are the physical based materials. So you can see in the preview, like this is a physical based materials. The reflections look really nice. And I want to pick something that looks a little tan. I'm going to switch this size to 64 by 64. I want to pick this bronze. I use double click it. The properties are transfer. And there you go. I have a new tinted bronze material that I can apply to families and elements in the project. Okay, so let's switch to a 3D view. And let's talk a little bit about rendering, which I'll cover in greater depth in a future class. But you can display a preview render in a Revit view by changing the visual style to realistic. And I don't know if you have a good machine or not. The realistic mode will enable the texture of a project, of a material. Here is my material. You can see that you can see the wood slats, but it's not completely photorealistic. I mean, it looks fine. It's a way to test how the material looks in the project, and you can use a realistic mode to make quick changes in materials. I'm going to, again, I can select this partition and look at the properties inside the wall, and notice that the wood vertical, it's associated with the exterior finish, and plywood in the interior finish. And so let's try the material I created, which was the exterior wood slat. I'm going to change the finish, the exterior finish of the basic wall. And now I have a different representation. Now this is a physical based material. And you can see that even in realistic mode, the quality of the preview is far much better than the non-physical one. To enable a rendering, you can go to the render tool. The render tool, it's the T icon, and when you render, you can render with different qualities: medium, high, best. You can select the output where it's on the screen or to a printer, the size of the print, the lighting that's going to use. And right now I don't have defined any lighting, so I'm not sure this is going to have any impact. The clouds and the image, these are post-production exposure changes that you can apply after it's created. So I'm going to render a draft and see how it looks like. Again, rendering a low res produce a really good effect on my end. It takes you a few seconds. I have a good machine. This might take longer on your end, but you can. Yeah.
Sorry. Where did you get into this rendering window? I missed that.
Yeah, it's here's the render tool. It's
the teacup.
Yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
And if this image is something you like to use for your project, you can save it to the project, and you can choose a name, and then that image is going to be available to you in the view. When you open it, that is a JPEG that is brought into the project. All right, this was a draft. Obviously, if you want something that's super nice, switch to high. And I try to avoid best, because best it will take more than half an hour or more than an hour to finish. Obviously, it's going to pull all your processing power into creating really good photorealistic. But you can see the difference of the photorealistic, of the physical based materials right here in the project. This looks really nice in my opinion. And look the difference. This is photorealistic on the top, and the one here is not. Like this floor, I don't think it has photorealistic. Yeah, you see this floor has those little warnings, so it's not physically based material. But I can swap this if I need to. Just need to open the asset library, go to the appearance library, go to concrete, and pick a concrete that is physically based, like this, opaque or cast in place, maybe cast in place. Or there's also this polished, terrazzo polished, or let's see what I have in polish here. Polish. Now this is concrete polish, stained, weathered, stained brown. I'm just gonna pick the concrete polish, double click. It's going to update the concrete lightweight. Click apply, click OK. This is a physically based material. And now the perception is different. All right, if I needed, like, if I wanted the roof to have a different material, I have to create a different wall family. Maybe call it roof and give it a different material. I'm gonna do that very quickly. Edit the type, duplicate, and I'll call this roof, typical roof. Then I go into the layer configuration, select the exterior finish, and I'm going to create a new material. So I'm going to duplicate it and call this roof, exterior roof. And then make sure you select it because when you double click the browser, it's going to transfer everything here. Then go to the asset browser, appearance library. You go again into the roofing category, and these are like shingles, shakes. I'm just going to pick these are asphalt shingles. I'm going to do like this dark asphalt shingle or light gray. Double click. The asset is transfer. I apply it. Okay. It updates the roof definition. Apply OK. And now match properties. Modify. Match properties. Pick the source, destination, destination, destination. And now I have my house with two different exterior material definitions. So any question about materials? If you're gonna use a material from project to project, it's best to build it inside the template so the user doesn't have to rebuild it over and over. I mean, this is the case for Gboards and maybe typical colors or the most frequently used colors, or if you're working with a client who has color templates for interiors, you can build those inside a corporate template for that client and then reuse it over and over from one project to another. The materials can also be exported. When you copy paste, let's say if I copy this wall and paste it into another project, all the materials that are new are going to transfer to the other project. Also, in the material library, if you go to Manage tab, Materials, you can create your own custom definition of materials. Here, it's a way to, the first icon allows you to create new libraries or open existing libraries. For example, if you build a really nice material and you wanted to make it available to other users, maybe you have a centralized library where you collect all these assets and then place that new project into an existing library, or you can create a new library. For example, I'm just going to see, I'm going to create a new library here. I'm going to call it, it's going to place it in a place that I designated. So in my case, I'm going to go to the D drive. In your company, you can have a dedicated folder called materials. So I'm going to create a folder here called materials. And inside the materials, I'm going to create a library, library or company standards. What is this? Okay, so again, I was saying you can create your own material libraries. I'm going to put it on my D drive materials folder. Oh, I have it on there. And this is materials custom. Save it. And I can switch libraries. I can switch from one library to another. And I can add materials to the new library as well so that they get referenced across multiple projects. So you go here, open existing library, and then I go open this one. That material right now is empty.
Would this show both the preset materials and the ones you've created?
Yeah, you have to remove the project material. I think you can filter it by trying to find that. You can filter it by library. Oh, here. You see here, when I click the double arrow moving up, I have access to the material custom. And so if I like that exterior material, which is this exterior roof, for example, I say, oh, I want to use this in other projects. So I select the project. I select the material tab, the material key, and then you can drag it and drop it into the custom material. So this is saved in this centralized location. Again, this glass tinted I just created, this is a cool glass. I think I can use this in other projects. Just grab the thumbnail and drop it into the material folder. And those definitions are starting getting centralized, so they can be accessed by other users. If you have another user who want to access these two materials, they can just, in their Revit session, they can go and say, open existing library and navigate to a server location where this folder will be living. But to your question, in the panel above, it's a combination of the materials in use in the template plus the custom materials. The only way to filter them is using this double arrow and clicking the material here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. One word of advice or a warning is, in particular, when we are working in remote locations, a user, I mean, if you're in a network environment, you can certainly centralize your materials in a folder, in a network folder. But if you are working from home, or like you're working in BIM 360, or are you disconnected from VPN location of the material path, and you attempt to render, Revit is not going to find the location of those files. And so these are going to come as black. So they are not going to render. So let's make sure that your localized workstation have access to the material path in which it was created, because all these assets are path dependent. And if they are missing in your workstation, they're not going to be able to find it. There's some solutions. For example, some people repath. They make a copy of these materials across all the workstations, but that's like a technical challenge. IT basically needs to create a script that grabs this centralized material library and copy across all the workstations. That's one alternate. Another alternate is to designate a rendering path. This is under the options, under file locations, not under rendering. You have in the rendering, like if you're working remotely and you're connected via VPN and VPN path, it's available to you. You can add a render appearance path, which is basically a server-based path. I could make my Google Drive be a render appearance path, and then I will save the material there on the cloud. This was a new thing that was added in Revit 2022, the ability to connect to server-based material path. But again, for this to work, all the users need to have the same render appearance path. Okay, it's 7:20. Any question so far on materials? Materials is a big topic, but for all of you doing interiors, it's a critical path of the your outcome deliverables. Next class, we will finish we will talk about curtain walls. We will finish and we'll do a little bit more interior layouts of furniture. So I'm going to save this file in the Google Drive as Mila Start 5. You can pick it up from here next class. I'll do my best to download all these recordings over the weekend. I've been super busy from my vacation and haven't had any chance to work that out, but I'll promise I'll make it available. Okay, so if no more questions, I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Have a great weekend. If you need support, stay over. I can look over your shoulder and your screen.
Thanks, Cesar. Have a good
Thank you,
weekend, buddy.
Cesar.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Have a
Bye.
good weekend, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.
I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
How do I'm not seeming to be able to save the project. I don't see it saving anywhere.
File save.
Go
Save
to
project.
File save.
And then there should be a dialog box that pops up.
Nothing's popping up.
Can you share your screen? Maybe I can help you.
Yeah. Okay, so this is where I'm trying to save it to. So I don't see anything from after 552.
So this is
I go file, save.
Okay, you
That's-
can,
That's all.
it seems like it's saved. You can hit.
Where did it save to though? Because that.
It seems like it's, is this SharePoint? Do you see that double arrow? That means that it hasn't been synced yet.
The double arrow?
It's
Oh,
OneDrive.
this.
Yeah, that. So that means this timestamp is gonna update when that switch into this green checkbox.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's what I'm not understanding.
Yeah, I think when you close, that will be synchronized, but it's been saved.
Oh, like if I. Oh, okay. Yeah, because I'm not able to find my work from last time either. I don't know where it's saving to. I don't know if I just need to go to save as or something.
If you wanna be absolutely sure, you can do save as and pick a location on your machine. It looks like you're
Yeah.
using SharePoint. In
I
SharePoint,
don't even know what SharePoint is.
No, it's that I think that's from OneDrive.
yeah,
OneDrive?
yeah, OneDrive.
Yeah.
It's a cloud location.
Yeah, so that's what it is. It's the OneDrive.
Oh, it's trying to
saving.
save it to the cloud.
And there's a gap from the time you execute the command and the time it appears in the cloud.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Cool. Good job.
Thank you.
So I have a question. I don't know if you could help about BIM 360.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you could help out with?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Do you mind if it's not recorded, if I'm going to share my screen?
Okay.
Can I have my Autodesk account information on it?
Yeah. Stop recording.